Welcome back to Web API Tutorials. I'm Venkat. In the previous videos, we have discussed about CORS and the pre-flight request, and also we have seen different ways of adding CORS to our application. As part of this, we have seen three different ways of adding CORS to our application. We have already seen adding CORS with the help of middleware. So we have seen it with named policy. We haven't seen it with default policy. Okay. In this video, let us see what is the difference between named policy and default policy. Okay. After this, we will discuss enabling CORS with endpoint routing. After that, we will see enabling CORS with EnableCors attribute. Okay. After completion of this CORS concept, we will start the authentication, JWT authentication videos. Let us start discussing the differences between named policy and default policies. This is the CORS implementation we have discussed in the earlier videos. You can see we have defined one policy to allow all the origins, all the headers, and all the methods. And here we have defined one policy to allow only particular origins, okay, only few origins, and allow all headers and all methods. Okay. So you can see here we have given a name to this particular policy. Okay, this is the name we have given to this policy, and we have used that policy name when we are adding it to our application. Okay. So this is a named policy. So why there are two different types of CORS enabling in middleware? First one is the named policy. Second one is the default policy. You can see here I'm removing that method and pressing control space. You can see there is a add policy and add default policy. So there are two methods. Let us discuss about the add default policy first. Okay. So if your application is going to use only one CORS policy, then you can go for default policy. But if your application wants to use multiple CORS policies, okay, more than one CORS policy, you have to use the add policy method. Okay, so let me define few policies. So you can notice here the current implementation we have used, you can implement only one policy with this because we have used the direct arrow methods. If you want to define multiple policies, we need to define a body first. I'm removing this and I'm defining a body. Okay. So if I define a body, we can define any number of policies inside the body. Okay, earlier we did not define the body. We have directly used the arrow function or the anonymous method or the delegate. Okay. So now you can see inside the body, I have pasted that piece of code. Okay, so this is the policy. I want to use it for allow all domains. Okay, allow all, everybody. And that's the one policy I want to define. And the next policy I want to define, allow only localhost. Okay, this policy is for only allowing the localhost. So this one is correct. And I'll remove this. So now you can see name itself is saying allowing only localhost. And here, so name itself saying allow all. So that means I'm allowing all. You can see here inside the add CORS policies, I have added two policies now. Okay. So these are named policies. You can see we have given the names for those policies. And now I will define one more policy, only Google applications. Okay. So only Google applications means google.com, comma, http://gmail.com. Maybe these domains are not correct. I'm just giving the names. http://Google Drive. So these are the origins. These are the domains or origins I wanted to allow as part of this policy. Okay. I think you are able to follow now. So I want to define one more policy, only Microsoft. So here I can say outlook.com, and here I can define microsoft.com, and here OneDrive. So you can see here I have defined 4 different policies. First one is allowing all. Second one is allowing only my local host. Here you can see allowing only Google origins or domains. Here you can see allowing only Microsoft websites or origins or domains. Okay. So here I have defined 4 different named policies. Okay. So when I want to add any one policy here, you can see. So here I can use one policy out of these 4. If I want to allow all, I can give that name. So now my application will use this particular policy, right? But what about the others? If I want to use other policies at the same time in our application, we cannot use that here. Okay. So now we can add default policy here. Okay. Let me add the default policy here. So this one, add default policy, and we don't need name for default policy, right? So now this one is the default policy. By default, I will allow all origins. So by default, I'm allowing all origins, right? So I don't need this one. So this one is also same thing. I'm commenting that out. Now I have added a default policy. If you want to use default policy in your entire application, you can see you don't need to give it here. If you have a named policy, then only mention the name here. So if you want to use the default policy, don't give any name here. Okay. So if you call app.useCORS method, that means you are using the default policy. Okay. Here I have default policy, and I'm using that default policy in my application by default. Okay. So if I want to use this Google or Microsoft or localhost or any other policies, so I can directly use them using the attribute enabling. You can see out of these 3, we have seen 3 different ways of enabling CORS, right? So we can use these 2. We can use these 2 to use multiple policies, right? If I want to use only Google, I'll go to any controller. Let me go to demo controller. Here I can paste that. Sorry. EnableCors, and I'll use the policy name. So that's the policy name I wanted to use, right? So only this particular controller follows this policy. Okay. This will override the default application level policy. Okay. So here you can see I have added only Google policy. Let us add one more controller. Click on controller, go to API controller, and give the name as Microsoft controller. So this is our controller, and inside this, let's copy this and paste it here. Add the using. Okay. Okay. So inside Microsoft controller, I want to use only Microsoft policy. Okay. So now this controller allows request from only Microsoft. Now we are using Microsoft policy inside Microsoft controller and Google policy inside demo controller, and inside student controller, let us use the localhost policy. Okay, paste it here, and in this place, let's copy the localhost policy and paste it here. Okay, so let's start testing now. Okay, before testing, let us start the testing with default policy. I'm commenting this one. When you add the EnableCors attribute on top of your controller or method, this particular attribute will override your default or application level policy. Okay. So what is our application level policy now? You can see. So our application level policy, we are using it as a default policy because we did not give any name. So it will search for, is there any default policy? If there is any default policy, it will apply that. Okay. So if we have given any name here, so that named policy will be applied to the entire application. Okay. So now we are using this as the default policy for entire application. You can see it is allow any origin, any method, any header. Okay. So now I will test this student controller endpoints. You can see I have commented this attribute now. Okay. Now I am running this application. Our application is running now. Let me go to students and try it out. So it is working. So this Swagger UI will not have any CORS policy because it is running from the same domain, so that it will not raise any CORS policies. So that we need to run it or call it from Angular application. So this is the Angular application. I have opened it already. Let me open the network tab. Okay. So now let us call this get all students. You can see there is a pre-flight succeeded and there is a main request. You can see this time, so what is the access control allow origin? It is star. Why it is star? So that is star because our application is using the default policy, and that default policy is saying allow any origin. Because it is allow any origin, that's why we are seeing the star here. Okay. Okay. So now we are using allow any origin at the entire application level, and let me enable the attribute here. So now application level, this policy will be applied, and for my student controller, this policy will be applied. So this EnableCors will override the existing or application level policy. Okay. So now our student controller will use this policy. Okay. According to this policy, what is the origin? So according to this policy, it should allow only localhost 4200. Okay. So now I have enabled this. Okay. Now I am rerunning it. Okay. From this Swagger anyways, it will work. So we got the data. Let's go to Angular application. Okay. This is our previous request. You can see it has star. Let us call it again. Okay. This time pre-flight succeeded, and let's go to this one. So this time you can see. So this time access control allow origin header is set to only localhost. because the student controller attribute is overriding the default policy. You can see here. So this is overriding the default policy. Okay. So in this place, let us put the other policy name. So let's put the Google policy name or Microsoft. So now the call is coming from our local Angular application. So it is expecting the call from Google, right? So this will fail now. Okay, let us test it. I'm rerunning it now. So anyways, it will work from Swagger. We got the data. And these are the previous two requests. This time I'm clicking third time. So you can see there is an error, CORS error. That means it is expecting the calls from Google domains. So what are those Google domains? Whatever we have mentioned in the policy. So from this google.com or gmail.com or drive.google.com. So it is expecting the request from these three origins. But we have requested it from our local Angular application 4200. That's why it failed. Okay. So this is how we can use different CORS policies with the names. Okay. So that is how we can use named CORS policies. And in the place of default policy, it is not mandatory that you always use the default policy. So I am commenting this out. The same policy I have defined in the named policy also, right? I'll uncomment it. So now I'll use this at the application level. Okay. So now this will be acting as a application level policy. You can see that now. So this is application level policy, and this is the policy for my local host, and this is policy for my other controller, and this is for my other functionality, right? Like that we can use it. With this, we have seen what is default policy and what is named policy. Okay, you can use any of these two. If you want to use or define multiple policies, you cannot with default policy. If you want to define multiple, you have to use named policies. Okay, this one. And we have seen some amount of third option also. Okay, we'll discuss it anyways. For more videos like this, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.